Good evening to you. It is Saturday, October 26th, 10:28 p.m. It's been a little while since Purdue lost the exhibition game at Creighton. Purdue falls to 0-0 on the brand new season. They lose 93-87, and if you're like me, the reason it took me a while to get back here, very upset, gnashing of teeth, ripping of garments, profuse crying, the whole thing. Just like every exhibition game, I was torn up. Once again, Matt Painter's exhibition game skills fail him, and Purdue continues their losing streak in exhibition games, a streak that started long ago versus West Virginia and continued last year versus Arkansas, and once again this year in Omaha, Purdue struggles mightily. Creighton's a good team. And they're a team that seemed to know themselves pretty well. Like they got a bunch of guys that know the system. They've got an unlikable D-bag of a shooting guard in Ashworth that looks like a Wisconsin Duke hybrid type guy, which made it kind of easy to get the juices going, like it was a game that counted. But if you watch the game on the Creighton, what do you call it? Creighton charity pay-per-view, it was $7. Pretty good bargain, I think, in this day and age. So I tuned in. I got to watch it, thanks to my pal Handel Jones, who reminded me the game wasn't at 8:30, it was at 8, and I was at my brother's house at 8, so I had to rush home and get the game started. I have a few thoughts about the game, and I will give them to you in a moment, but first let me thank our sponsors. Thanks to the people who made my sweatshirt, if you can see it. It's a good one. That's a good one. Head over to homefieldapparel.com. You can look just like Boiler Dowd. You're not going to get your hair to look this good, don't get me wrong, but you can have the clothing, the fit, as the kids say, and get a sweatshirt, get a hat, get a t-shirt, get one of the platinum packs, grab one of the jackets, retro satiny jackets, or a coach's jacket. Enter Boiled 25 at checkout. You'll get 15% off. That's a pretty nice deal. And then, like, one of my favorite things in the whole wide world is heading over to AJ's when I'm on campus. If I'm coming from Ross-Ade, I head towards the fire station. When I get to the fire station, I bust a hard left. And then the blue glowing lights will be before me, and the wonderful smells of fried starches and delicious meats and cheeses will dance in my nose, and then I'll go inside, maybe grab a pint at the bottom of the pint. If it's a game weekend, there'll be a Boiled Sports magnet there to greet my journey to the bottom of the pint. EatAJ's.com, burgers, beef, beer. That's AJ's. Adam and Jake, damn it, they're handsome. So, Purdue played in a game that doesn't count. But this was an important one. I don't know if it was as impactful to the team as the exhibition game was last year to that team, for a couple of reasons. Number one, Creighton's atmosphere, they were not as, in their defense, by the way, I'm not putting them down at all. They were not lathered up like the Arkansas fans were. Brian Newbert jokes that the Arkansas exhibition game versus Purdue was their national championship, and on Twitter it felt like that. And I didn't catch any flack at all from Creighton fans today on Twitter. I was given a little bit of play-by-play. If you weren't fortunate enough to spend the $7 to watch the game, you did miss out on a good time. They had kind of an interesting, I think it was a public broadcast team doing play-by-play. They were very good. So better than most broadcast teams in the modern day, in my opinion. I mean, I love Hummel, and Ray Day has been really good on Big Ten Network, but most of them I could deal without, and I'm really comfortable hitting the mute button. But today I enjoyed it. They added some texture too, because they didn't have the full graphic suite, so you didn't know who had how many fouls and whatever. One thing we learned today is Will Berg fouls a lot. We saw Berg in a much increased role. He started the game, which was interesting and different. Berg looked good versus Kalkbrenner. He looks solid at times. He has a lot of energy to him. Let's see if I can find this. The starting five, I can tell you, was TKR, Berg, Fletch Lawyer, Braden Smith, and Jakari Harris. Couple surprises there for many of you. Obviously, Berg being the starting lineup and Harris being the starting lineup. I'll dig a little deeper in that Harris portion here in a second. But first, let's start with Berg. I liked Berg's energy. I thought he did a good job. He was as strong as anybody. He could hang with Kalkbrenner, who's a legit big-time talent. He's a future NBA player, no doubt about it. And they had a guy named King, I think, on their squad as well, who was really good. And at times in the first half, Purdue just simply couldn't match the physicality of Creighton. This is such a weird thing to see as a Purdue fan. We haven't seen it in a couple of years, where you have to go back to probably, 2019, 2020, 2021. Last time Purdue had a look like this, where they could be tossed around a little bit. But there's some real light at the end of this tunnel, in my opinion. Burgess is the spark plug that we've been promised. He comes right in. He brings a lot of energy. He kind of looks like a baby deer at times, even though he's a big, strong guy. But he brings in energy. CJ Cox and Jakari Harris are going to be impossible to keep off the court, if we're being really honest with ourselves. Those two guys, they're pesky on defense. And they are really, really good on offense too. They look for their shot. They're aggressive with it. I got nothing wrong with the way these two freshmen are playing. I see nothing wrong with these guys. They, like we all knew right out of the box, these two look physical. Their mentality is pretty dialed in. They, somebody on Twitter said, is Cox the next Chris Kramer? Well, people always discount Chris Kramer's athleticism because they just say, okay, he's a scrappy, gritty guy. But Kramer's a hell of an athlete. And I don't know if Cox is that type of athlete, but Cox might be more of a scorer than Kramer has. He definitely has more of a scorer's mentality. Will that be kind of pushed down in him as a player? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But I can tell you Harris and Cox were super impressive. Fletch Lawyer looks like a year older version of Fletch Lawyer. Similar role. So when I said this on Twitter, if you look at really what this game was and what is happening in the Purdue basketball program, you have Braden Smith playing the same role without Zach Edey, but he's playing the same role. Fletch Lawyer playing the same role, but without Zach Edey, but same role. TKR is in a new role. He is more important on offense. He has more things drawn up for him. He does a very, very good job facing up to the basket, knocking down jumpers. And he had a couple plays, especially down the stretch in the second half, where I was like, man, when he's pissed off, when he's just a little angry, not super angry, just a little angry, resolute, he can make things happen. And he had 2 straight possessions, a right-hand hook and a left-hand hook, where I was really, really impressed with his ability down near the basket. At the same time, TKR on defense struggled a little bit on defense. This is a good test. Creighton plays physical brand of basketball, especially underneath the basket. Their front court's big and physical. Like I said, King and Kalkbrenner are both really, really good players. They had another guy on the team. Can't remember his name right now. Blonde-haired guy that he absolutely bombed from everywhere. Looks like he has a ton of potential. I think he's young. I can't remember. And this is a solid team. It's a good exhibition for Purdue. If you noticed, if you have the trained eye, which most of you do here that are watching this, if you have the trained eye to watch the way Purdue was acting, the way Painter was acting on the bench, the same intensity of a normal game was not there. I think there's plenty of things Purdue can work on, plenty of things that you can take back on film and say, got to work on this, this, and this, and this, this, and this. Plenty of things there to say. The defense looked absolutely horrible for big chunks of this game. One thing that's really cool, one thing that's kind of back, which has been gone for a couple of years, is Purdue defending the ball out to 90 feet in the form of Cox and Harris specifically. Love seeing that. That'll wear other teams down. That's only going to get better as the season goes on. I loved it. And oh yeah, Braden Smith. Braden Smith is awesome. The funny thing about, I don't know about you guys, so I've got this part of me, I know Braden Smith's a really good basketball player. We watched all year. He made big shots. He's got the mentality. He's a cutthroat guy. When he enters the gym, he's ready to compete. But when you lose a guy like Zach Edey, you start saying, man, is it going to be too much for him to exist in this new ecosystem, if you will? Minus the big fella who is I don't think we can say arguably anymore, say the best Purdue basketball player in the history of the program. So he's gone. How does this affect Braden Smith? Well, Braden Smith is still really good. He led all scorers. He was the best player on the court, in my opinion. And I don't think anybody's going to debate that. I don't even think the Creighton broadcast team would have debated that, not if they were wise. So Purdue had the best basketball player on the court. Kalkbrenner's very good, but I think Creighton looked to me like a team that just knows themselves a little bit more than the Boilers at this point. Purdue is going to be a work in progress. I said this to Jay Money on the Handsome Hour a week ago. I think they're going to lose a couple games in the pre-con. I said that last year though too. So I've been wrong before. If you tune in here, you'll know that I'll admit when I'm wrong. But I think they're going to lose a couple games in the pre-con because they're going to figure some things out. I think Painter's going to have to mess around with lineups, figure out who needs to be out there. For instance, Berg looks good at times, and his physicality, his strength, his ability to attack the glass, all very important, but he cannot stop himself from fouling. Harris got a couple cheap fouls in quick succession. He'll get better at that, I'm sure of it. But I'm telling you, the mentality of Harrison Cox, I've said it, 5 times already? This is not going to be played down by me, and I am excited to see those guys playing. We saw a lot of Brian Waddell. That was probably fun for a lot of you. And on the downside, if I'm going to look, let's get critical for a second. Cam Heide played, but was so quiet when he was in the game. Didn't look very aggressive on defense. Wasn't looking for his shot, it seemed at all. Maybe he just didn't get opportunities. And similarly, Miles Colvin was not looking for his shot. And I think those are two guys that I think every Purdue fan and many people outside the Purdue family thought those are the guys that are going to be the key parts of this new look Purdue team. If Purdue is going to get better, it's going to be those guys that the success is predicated on how well they play. I think you'd argue now, after seeing the team, I think you're going to say it's going to be Harrison Cox. If we're going to make a really, really way too early prediction based on nothing because it didn't happen, the exhibition isn't real. Harrison Cox, though, man, if I were everybody in the Big Ten, I'd be pretty worried. If you've watched Purdue play before, see, the funny thing is a lot of fans on Twitter seem to have a memory like a gnat. All they remember back is last year and the year before. And they say, oh, Zach Edey's gone, Purdue's dead. No, this is real Purdue basketball. When you have guys that are like just absolute bastards on defense, this is what Purdue fans dig. This is what Matt Painter loves. But now how do you bring all these pieces together? Because Purdue still has major question marks in the front court. They still have major question marks there. Jacobson hit a 3, which was interesting, neat to see. Caleb first looked lost at times, but also looked resolute. And I was like, okay, maybe he's the guy that you really need somebody with a major chip on their shoulder in the game alongside of TKR. TKR seems cerebral because he is cerebral. TKR seems laid back because I think that's his natural bent. So you need either A, wake him up with something every game that gets him a little angry, or put a guy next to him, flank him with somebody who's going to be a little piss and vinegar for the team. Will Berg has a little bit of that to him naturally, and he's kind of throws his body into things, but I'm not sure if he's the long-term answer. I think he's going to be important to the team because of his physicality and his strength, but I think they have not found the answer, obviously, yet, and we're going to learn a lot of this team between now and January. Let's look at the stats together, and then we'll talk about what the game was. So here, let me see the one thing I wanted to see if I can find this. Okay, how about that? Purdue actually out-rebounded Creighton. I'm shocked at that because it didn't feel like they out-rebounded. Purdue gets 33 boards, Creighton gets 31. That's kind of a Matt Painter edict, right? That's something that if Painter's going to say a defining thing he wants on his team, he wants Purdue to out-rebound the opponent. Let's look at another one before we get into individual stats. See if I can find it. Pretty solid. Purdue turns the ball over 7 times. Is that total in the game? Yeah, 7 total turnovers. And Creighton had a problem for a little bit turning the ball over. Part of that was because Purdue turned it up for just a minute. It was on the back of Harris in the second half. But Creighton had 16 turnovers, and they had a 4 or 5 minute period in the second half where it looked like Purdue might be able to take charge of the thing. Purdue took the lead, if you don't know this, in the second half. So that was good to see. I want to check something before I do this because I've been having audio problems. Good. Nobody's saying I'm having audio problems. It's good to hear. Let's go through everything. Okay, leading scorer Braden Smith, 31 points on 12 of 23 shooting. Along with that, he had 7 boards and 4 assists. This is the thing about Braden Smith. He's good at basketball. And he's also a guy that always knows where everybody should be. I used to talk about this a lot last year because he would do things to try to get everybody, like kind of almost like time filler. He's moving around and dribbling in a way just to give players a chance to set up the offense, set up that specific play. And in doing so, he's kind of twisting teams into a tizzy. He did that today. He showed a little bit of that. I think one thing I didn't like, especially at the end of the game, Purdue missed a lot of opportunities to really make the game closer. I think they were down by 3 or 5 at that point. They missed 4 straight buckets, missed a free throw. Like I said, I'm not too bothered by it, but they got to get better. And I think they will. And I think everything about this end of the game, it feels to me like this is what Painter does. I don't think he really wants to steal the home team's glory. I just don't think he does that in these games. So he's not super intense. But make no bones about it, Painter was trying to figure some things out. On the other side of the ball, Creighton also was playing a lot of guys. They played a ton of people. In case you were wondering, you didn't get to watch it. They played a ton of guys, so they were not. This isn't like the Arkansas game where they were just totally, had their jaw set and they were like, okay, Purdue, we're going to go after them. We got to go win this thing. It's a huge championship night for our Blue Jays. Creighton didn't have that mentality. Neither did their fans, and they're in favor of them. They were respectable. TKR, 22 points, 10 to 20 shooting, 8 boards, 3 assists. Fletch Lawyer, 17 points, 4 of 9 shooting, 5 assists and a board. Let's see how many minutes. Okay, so Smith played 34 minutes. Lawyer played 30. TKR played 28. Jakari Harris. Okay, he played 19 minutes, so his box score isn't much to write on. 19 points, or 19 minutes, 4 personal fouls. Like, it looked like he was going to foul out. 2 points, and in this box score, it doesn't look like they have steals. But like I said, he was making a difference in there. The other guy I want to look at, Cox. 10 minutes total played. Felt like more because he was so impactful in there. He had 4 points. And just 1 personal foul. I'm looking at Heidi, 14 minutes. So played a decent amount, 0 points, no shots. Colvin, 16 minutes, 1 of 3 shooting, 2 points. So those guys weren't really looking for their shot. And I don't know if this is something where Paint said, not tonight. It's not your night. We're not going to run stuff for you. By the way, Jacobson finished with 18 minutes. He had 7 points, 2 for 3 shooting, 1 of 1 from 3-point. Pretty cool. Let's see anybody else. Smith was 5-11 from 3. Yeah, nothing else. Okay. Purdue shoots 38% from 3 as a team and 33% at the half. Creighton shot 46% from 3. And part of that, you can say, wow, oh, shucks. I can't stand that. Purdue fans, we have a tendency to do this. Let's not do that. When you see it happens over and over, teams get hot versus your team. If you watch what Creighton did a really good job was spreading out Purdue, spaced it out. Their motion is awesome in their offense. Purdue's guards could not keep up with it. And it gave them so many looks, so many open looks. Creighton did a great job capitalizing on that. They hit a lot of shots because they're a good shooting team, but Purdue's defense was balls at times. Can't stress that enough. Purdue loses, improves, or falls to 0-0. Let's talk to you guys. Thanks for being here. Travis Brennan says good evening. Same to you. Pat Gottschall says boiler up. Karen Garulak says, hey, B-Dad, how are you? Good to see you, Karen. Joe Ensley says, shortest offseason ever, literally. Yes, because they were playing in April. And now all of a sudden in October, they're playing again. And of course, these things keep feeling shorter too, because this exhibition thing is interesting. Handel Jones asked the question, when do we see this in football? I said, if we're going to see this in football, the same type of thing, right, where you have a exhibition game, I think it'll be more like when the Super Conference comes about, that 70-team model that has been floated. If that comes about in the next 3 to 5 years, so the Super Conference comes about, and then spring game, Handel said, great idea. You'd have the non-Super Conference teams play in the spring. It seems dangerous to me, to tell you the truth. Football's a lot different than basketball. But I think that's something we could see something like that, but I don't know. If we're comparing to the NFL, obviously you've got, since they dropped a preseason game, you have teams go to each other's camps and play that way. So that's the close thing we got over there. Joe Inslee said, oh yeah, okay. Boilerman says fake loss feels way better than recent losses. Yeah, no kidding. And hey, thanks for the offer on the tickets. Sorry I didn't react quick enough. Really appreciate that. I think you're the same Boilerman. Looks like your icon and everything looks like the same on Twitter and same name. So I'm going to say, yeah, thank you, even though it didn't work out. Ryan Michael Anthony Harrington says, was at the game. Cool. You're not the only one. Let's see if I think you were not alone for the BS contingent. That's great. Was at the game. Creighton fans were not happy. They didn't have the starters in late. Smith looked very good. Okay. So the funny thing is, Ryan, they didn't sound like they cared a whole bunch. The only time you really heard Creighton fans was booing, and they booed one pretty good call. I thought it was a legit call. It was by the guy I didn't like on Creighton. The guy who annoyed me, Ashworth. So I don't know. I guarantee you have a better finger on the pulse of what Creighton fans are going through. And so they didn't have the starters in late. So like I said, they were not dialed in to win that game either, but they were up by a lot at that point too. So it did not have the intensity of a normal game. And the other thing is, when's the last time you remember Purdue giving up 93 points to a team? Just full stop, in a real game, in a conference game, in a, whatever you want to call it, in a real game. Somebody can answer me in the margin. That's a lot of points given up for a Purdue team. It's pretty unusual. So, it didn't have the same feel as a Big Ten game, but definitely not as a real official game. So Ancient Astronaut says, boiler up, hammer down. It's time. Steve Azano says, so glad Purdue sports are back. It's felt extra long since April with football season being canceled. Yeah, that was tough. We didn't even see it coming, did we, Steve? Didn't even see it coming. All of a sudden, they just announced no more football. And so all fall, no football. You've had whatever that is that they're calling that we've seen every Saturday, but no football except for that one weekend. It felt kind of nice to have the bye week this week, didn't it? Got to watch some other teams play. Really bad college football day until 4 o'clock or so. I didn't get to watch a lot after that. Had some family stuff I was doing. But some pretty lousy games. Maybe there's some good ones this evening. I really didn't get to see. Other than watching Purdue Creighton. I wasn't in front of a TV. Pat Gottschall says, need to find production beyond the big three. Smith was definitely looking for a shot. Maybe the detriment of distribution. Agreed. Might need more time to build chemistry with the newbies. There's no doubt. No doubt. He had a play that was interesting at the end of the game where he dumped the ball to Harris. Harris had a nice finish around the basket. Then Harris right away got back on defense. I'm sure that warmed Coach Painter's heart and then caused a travel by Creighton. So, there's some chemistry things that need to be worked out. And this is, like I said, this is a work in progress. This team, we have to look at it that way. It's going to be a fun season. Depending on what your perspective is as a fan. I really mean that. Because I said I talked to a younger fan on the Handsome Hour. I said I talked to a younger fan that day, a middle school kid, and he was just confident Purdue's going to be top 10 ranked most of the season. I don't have that confidence. I think it's great that there are people that have raised their expectation that much. I really do. I'm not going to knock down anybody's optimism, but there's a process here, and this is one of those process seasons. It's not a rebuilding season, but it is a season in which Purdue's got to grow up, learn who they are, figure out which guys are going to step up into these roles. But there's opportunity here for a lot of those guys. Motor City Boiler says they didn't have any prep for this game. Not worried. Yeah, exactly. Purdue was not dialed in for individuals on this team. Purdue's players didn't know anything about them. That's not a typical Purdue preparation at all. So I think that's kind of fun the way Painter handles that. And it's not a bad thing in these games. Pat Gottschall says broadcast team was surprisingly good. Agreed. They're great. Ed Albanese, the king of gummy bears and gummy worms and delicious gummy treats, says, I'm worried about Colvin and Heidi. The big guys will do fine. Yeah, I'm not to the point yet where I'm going to worry, but I'm concerned that we saw such a quiet night from both. So I understand where you're coming from. Alex Chatton says it'll be interesting to see what the team does against non-elite centers. Yeah, and you definitely saw an elite center tonight. Definitely. It's a good point. Kalkbrenner's good. And that their power forward's good too. So really, really solid players. Let's see. Did I lose where I am? Yeah, I did. Meisterberger says 31 from Smith, 17 from Lawyer. Can we have that all season? Yeah, sure. Why not? I'll approve it. If you send that to my desk, I'll sign off. So Meisterberger says 12 dunks. 12 dunks for them, 2 of them for us. Interesting. It was pretty easy for them to get to the basket, wasn't it? I mean, like really easy, especially their movement, the way they move without the ball. It was absolutely killing Purdue. And it looked like Purdue had no idea how to counter it because, again, going back to that point earlier, Purdue wasn't really prepared to play Creighton. I know Paint knows who this team is. He knows that they're really good at spacing, really good at moving without the ball. They're kind of a slightly different version of Purdue on offense. But, yeah, that's a good, complex offense to play for Purdue. And I think Purdue would have prepared better for them in a real game situation. But, yeah, we're going to see a little bit of this season, though, as Purdue grows up, where teams, especially these big physical teams, the one that I worry about a little bit, I worry about as I look ahead, I think it's October 26th now. I think it's November 15th, Purdue plays Alabama. And there's the next. So if this game was like kind of our appetizer, that's the one you should look forward to and say, okay, this is the barometer. Where is Purdue right now? So you've got a half month to get ready for that, and you've got some games coming up here soon. But that game, they've got talent all over the court, and they've got depth on their roster, and that's going to be an intense night in Mackey Arena. I'm still trying to get tickets, sit with a couple friends of mine. Excited about that one, but yeah, that's going to be fun. But I'd say that's your next marker. They play Yale before that, which is a tournament team, as you know, and Purdue has played Yale recently, so in the tournament. Let's keep going. Meisterberger says bench 31 for them, 13 for us. Also interesting. Yeah, I think a lot of guys were not looking for their shot at all. But yeah, it is interesting. Waddell was in there quietly the whole time, not really looking for his shot when he was in there. At Albany says, I heard that Edey will get his MBA, so he's coming back next year. Oh, great. That's awesome. I think everybody wanted him to use that final year of NCAA eligibility. Clearly, he's horrible in the NBA. That's what the Twitter's telling me. So, yeah, he's awful. So, yeah, he'll be good at college again. That'll be fun. Travis Brennan says, Edey hit a 3 tonight. Yeah, I saw that in the corner. That was fun to see. Brian T said, so excited for the basketball season to start. Don't expect perfection, just competitive with the upside potential. Yeah, and I think we're going to see a team with more edge. I think Painter is really ready to start turning up the heat on these guys to get them more competitive and more physical. Also, do not discount Coach Brantley with the bigs. Do not discount that. That development, so important for this program, and magical things are going to happen over the next few months. I firmly believe it. We've seen it over and over, so why not this time? Let's see. Patrick Gottschall says 6 rebounds from Harris is impressive. Yeah, he's going to be really good. Physically, we've been talking about him. He's the real deal. Need to be in verse says, feel really good about Purdue this year. Biggest question marks for me are interior defense, and the best options are the 4 and 5. Loved Cox and Harris on ball defense. Yeah, that was great. Biggest question mark, I think, right now has got to be the 5. No question, right? It's just that's the question mark. A lot to figure out, and I think we don't find the full answer to that one until January, February. I think it's going to be a while. I think we're going to see guys. I hope they understand they're in the tryout, right? Trying to figure out who's the guy. But they all have flaws, right? If you look at all of them, you love the physicality of Berg, but you love the ability of Jacobson to shoot the ball and go block shots, but he's not physical. You love the fact that Burgess has got such a motor. You like the fact that First has been around the block and he's been in the system, but they all have flaws too. And we could dig in deeper in that. I'm not going to do that tonight, but yeah, if you put them all together, you'd have Superman. You'd have Zach Edey, but maybe a little bit different. But yeah, my biggest concern is the 5, no question. Jay Tent says, free throws I'm a little worried about. Yeah, 62.5. That's propped up by Lawyer going 7-7. Yeah, I didn't even look at free throws. Thanks for bringing that up. And this has been a problem. This has been a problem for Purdue basketball. So let's hope it doesn't rear its head too badly. Remember when Edey hit his little skid last year at times? the team would kind of plummet. So got to be better free throw shooting team. But it is going to be a much more free-flowing game, clearly, than it was before. Just because the way teams are going to defend you, you don't have Superman in the middle. Meisterberg says, Illinois or Tennessee are my guess for 90-point games. Yeah, those are good guesses. And those are very good guesses. But I need to know. I need hard data. Pat Gottschall says, we're going to be good. The only question is how good. Yep, I agree. And I think that's it. I think that's the last question of the night. Good post game. Not too long. That didn't take too long. I got to get back into the flow of the 20 to 25 minute post, and just to see if I got to challenge myself to do that. I'm not very good at it right now. So everybody's in pre-season format right now. I'm trying to figure out which parts are working. Get back to my strength. Got to watch the film, as one football coach has been saying over and over this year. But I can tell you, I can do better, guys, girls. And I appreciate you tuning in. I hope you have a great evening. Hammer down. Talk to you soon on Monday, 9 o'clock-ish. We'll have a handsome hour. So, yeah. Nita Bean versus glad to be back talking basketball with you, Dowd. Really like tuning in, hear your thoughts. Yeah, same. Thanks for being here. And it's always fun hearing what you guys have to say and bouncing ideas off each other and coming together. So God bless everybody. Hammer down. Talk to you soon. See ya.